So it looks like President Trump might be changing his tune toward at least some illegal immigrants. In his cabinet briefing, Trump floated a plan for some undocumented farm and hotel workers. Let's watch.
And we're going to work with people so that if they go out in a nice way and go back to their country, we're going to work with them right from the beginning on trying to get them back in legally. Is that right? So it gives you real incentive. Otherwise, they never come back. They'll never be allowed once a certain period of time goes by, which is probably going to be 60 days. We're also going to work with farmers that if they have strong recommendations for their farms for certain people, we're going to let them stay in for a while and work with the farmers and then come back and go through a process, a legal process. But we have to take care of our farmers and hotels and various places where they need the people. And we're going to be working with you very carefully on that. So a farmer will come in with a letter concerning certain people saying they're great, they're working hard. We're going to slow it down a little bit for them. And then we're going to ultimately bring them back. They'll go out. They're going to come back as legal workers. Okay?
It's still unclear what President Trump means by slowing it down. So, Amber, on this one, I know you have other immigration cases that you want to talk about once we get past this, so I'll just put forth my views on this, which gets back to something we were talking about in an earlier segment of the show, which is my contention that the President is prone to overly neat or sloganeering solutions to things that are actually quite complicated. And so on immigration, he obviously does propose, I think, a pretty hard line by his own view, his own words, talking about the idea that there has to be a crackdown, people have to be removed. Now then you get into the agricultural sector, where according to the Department of Agriculture, 47% of hired workers are illegal immigrants. That poses an obvious practical complication. Now, of course, you can argue, well, those people shouldn't be there at all, so kick them out, and then you have to find the American workers to do it, which would presumably be seeking higher wages, which leads to higher prices. Or you can say, well, we'll come to some kind of accommodation, which is what Trump seems to be suggesting there, although the details of it are vague. Much the same in the hospitality industry, which is estimated to have more than a million illegal immigrants working within that. So to me, the tension is just the kind of sloganeering or headline solution, and then a more complicated reality with which Trump has to grapple.
Yeah, so I think it's probably going to be no secret that I think this is a horrible idea, and it's not what Trump ran on, which was deporting all illegal immigrants, and they shouldn't be given a pass just because a farm worker went, or an agricultural, farm owner, probably from a big corporation, mind you, went to Trump and was like, hey, Trump, I really need these guys. Please, I don't want to have to pay American wages and give benefits to workers who are here, which is precisely the problem that so many conservatives have identified with mass legal immigration, which is that it does undercut American wages. Yes, prices would increase, but I think it's reasonable to say that we should be focused on making sure that people in America are provided with purposeful and meaningful work that also pays a good wage. There's also a guest worker program, a seasonal visa for agricultural workers that has about 250,000 people in it in the past few years. If Trump wants to make the argument that there needs to be an expansion of that program to allow more seasonal farm workers to come in from South American and Central American countries. I think that would be much more reasonable than saying that farm owners get to basically skirt the law because they've made the argument to Trump that they need more people.
Yeah, in relation to the first point about American wages and American labor protections, I agree with that, at least in principle. And I think one of the places we have common ground here is that the plan that Trump seems to be suggesting in rather vague terms just seems wide open to abuse of all kinds. He talks about the idea that a farmer will come in with a letter concerning certain people saying they're great, they're working hard. Well, obviously that implies that workers who are most, least resistant to pushing for any improved working conditions or most resistant to any forms of unfair pay would not be obviously recommended by the employer. You have the additional problem that it's estimated that around 1/4 of agricultural workers are female, and I think there is obvious danger there for various forms of harassment or all sorts of weird incentives for female workers to be in the employers' good books with very little protection. So I think that is a real danger. I just think that if you make that argument, which some, as you know, on the left as well as the right make, that there has to be, one of the reasons to be more stringent about immigration is to improve working conditions for American citizens, then you have to accept that that will lead to increased prices and perhaps in the short term labour shortages while that all balances itself out.
Yeah, of course, and I completely acknowledge that. And getting to like a broader theme of this administration, I've been writing about this a lot, which is that there's going to be this inevitable tension between the big tech people, the corporatists, the billionaires, and the populists within the administration. And this is, I think, evidence of that playing out in real time, as has been the fight over tariffs, as has been the fight over H-1B visas, which we saw before Trump even took office. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy calling for a large expansion of the H-1B visa program. People like J.D. Vance and some of them, and Steve Bannon, who is obviously not in the Trump administration, but I think it's fair to say is sort of the early adopter of MAGA ideology outside of Trump. They've argued that the mass expansion of the H-1B visa program would crowd out American workers, suppress wages, et cetera. And Trump ultimately came out and said, I support H-1B. He didn't say whether or not he was going to expand it, but now he's offering this $5 million gold card that people can just buy to get access to the United States.
Cash for passports, effectively.
Yes,
right?
exactly. So there's going to be a point, I think, where the people who voted for Trump because they are part of the working class and want him to make changes related to immigration on their behalf so that they can have better wages, more job opportunity, are going to start getting upset. And reasonably so, because that's not what he ran on, is catering to the interest of corporations.
Sure, and I mean, obviously we were talking about the tariffs earlier on in the trade war. It seems like that is, as you say, very much part of the same picture there, right? He has not done the thing that would have taken longer and involved more shorter term pain, but would at least have had the potential, in theory, to increase American manufacturing and to provide more of those working class jobs. And so this does get, I think, to some of the tensions in the Trump coalition, which you have just outlined, because you do have the Elon Musk people, frankly, the rich people, the business people, and against the sort of Bannon economic populist people. And, obviously those of us who are of a more liberal or lefty disposition have more in common with the Bannon people in that sense, even though there's massive disagreements with them in other ways, that it is sort of setting them up against corporate power. But the question is Trump ultimately going to end up siding with the corporate power side?
And I think on the tariff question, he sort of hit a middle ground, so to speak, with having still the 10% baseline, but not doing the full reciprocal tariff. I mean, if it were up to business owners, they would have no tariffs, right? So that was the middle ground. This doesn't feel like middle ground. I think the H-1B question, the gold card, was not middle ground. So there's going to be, I think, some pushback at some point if he continues making decisions that seem to favor the Jamie Dimons, the Elon Musks, the Bill Ackmans of the world over the working class.
I agree with you. So we have a point of agreement.
We do. Imagine that. Up next, a beef of all beefs between Daily Wire commentator Matt Walsh and podcast host Megyn Kelly. We'll explain.